to the Reveal Report. What is it?
They have done everything possible to destroy us.
What are they talking about? They obviously want to implement a brand new currency.
Show that they are right, that they have done everything possible to destroy us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Reveal Report. I'm George Iceman for another, it's going to be an amazing day today. We're going to talk about the dark arts, spirit communication, the Ouija board, ladies and gentlemen. Its history, its occultic nature, its inspiration on horror movies, and its influences around the world. Many different cultures use this, maybe not so much in the form that you may see here in the US and Canada, but other forms around the world. And it's going to be an amazing topic of conversation. We'll possibly open up the opportunity for you to ask a few questions at the end of the show, maybe even share one of your stories. So I thank you all for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share this link with everybody as we get into this topic about Ouija boards. I want to say hello to some of the people in the chat. Shelly, how are you? Thank you for joining us today. Jesse, thank you so much for being here and supporting us. Tara, how are you? Ed is here. Third Eye, how are you? DK Flower, Jeff, Vinny, Deborah, so many. Tom, how are you? So many wonderful people that support us, what we're trying to do here every Friday night. Again, I ask you please to like, subscribe, and share the link as we talk about the Ouija board today. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me today, my special guest is one of Canada's premier paranormal investigators, a demonologist. She's traveled a lot all over the world. She's involved with many different television networks. She has a huge fan base on an amazing radio show she does. And I'm very lucky to be her friend and have her on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Michelle Desrochers. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did I botch the last name just a little bit?
That's okay. It could be worse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Desrochers. Yeah.
Okay, Desrochers. There we go. Like almost like the chocolate, like the right?
Yeah. Ferrero Rocher. Is that? Can I say that?
There you go.
Yeah.
Michelle, we thank you so much. For those watching, you could follow her on her website .com, and I want to get right into it. The Ouija board. Its occultic nature, its influences, its connection to haunting spirits, demon possession, so much pop culture, and everything else, the Ouija board. I want to go immediately to the Wikipedia, and here's what it says. Businessman Elijah Bond had an idea to patent a planchette sold with a board on which the alphabet was printed. Much like the previously existing talking boards, Bond filed on May 28, 1890 for a patent of protection on this. It's credited to the invention of the Ouija board. It was issued on the day of February 10th, 1891. That is the Wikipedia explanation for the Ouija board. But we're going to get deeper into that. We're going to get deeper on how the name came up, where it comes from. how the design came, because there was other boards prior to that board that Mr. Bond had, other versions of that. And it's quite biblical. On that note, I would love for you to please start educating some people on some of the background on the Ouija board, Michelle.
Okay, well, I think to understand how the Ouija board has become such, a part of our modern day society, I think we have to explore how far back spirit communication actually goes. And you have to do that by going back to the origins and the fascination behind it all, because I really do believe it just carried over. Spirit communication goes back to ancient times. People have always been captivated by death and really what lies on the other side. So attempts to contact the other side to obtain knowledge was quite commonplace in a lot of the ancient cultures. They were known even as talking boards back then. Many older civilizations around the world for centuries would use them. A historic fun fact is a board was actually used in ancient Rome to predict the next king. Who figured? But people have been using the boards for a long time. In China, they would do things like spirit writing, which is, a popular way of communicating with the dead. That went on from the 5th to the 13th centuries. And it was only outlawed a century ago, if you can believe it. And let's face it, Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, both came out and developed a telephone to the dead to be able to communicate with the other side. But if you really go back, there's a lot of fine line between spirit communication and necromancy. And the first book of Samuel and the Hebrew Bible, which is our Old Testament, makes mention of the witch of Endor in the 11th century BCE. And it said that King Saul was so concerned about the outcome of battle against the Philistines, and he was so desperate for answers that he went to see this woman. But it was outlawed in Israel. Therefore, he had to go in disguise. She would then go on to evoke the spirit of Samuel, to which predicted that basically he was going to be defeated, to which he did. And of course, he killed himself. So the Romans had their own version of this. It goes back again to Persia, ancient Babylon, Egypt. It went all over, the ancient world. But then I think it really took a turn when, of course, we bring in spiritualism, bring in the Victorians, as I say. There was a huge movement in the 1800s, and the upper and middle classes, people were fascinated, of course, by the occult and the supernatural. And they pretty much still are. That hasn't changed. Seances were very popular. George, you and I have talked about this many times. It was a preferred method of receiving messages from the other side at one point. Abraham Lincoln, whose wife Mary was actually a spiritualist, Harry Houdini were regulars at the seance. They were regular seance attendees. You and I have often spoken about the Fox sisters, who pretty much were, invented spiritualism. And Lily Dale here in upstate New York is the largest spiritualist community in the world.
Rochester.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right near there. And it became big business. They would do things like table tipping. Talking boards were huge for contacting the dead. It brought forth a lot of charlatans, and I think that was part of, that was partially responsible for putting a blanket of doubt that followed into modern times. And as we came into the 1880s, in and around that time when it became popular was when the Ouija board itself was introduced. But it was a parlor game, which was a little bit disturbing, still is. And it was very popular into the early 1900s until World War I. And then after the war, so many people had lost people in the war. They'd lost loved ones, that they took it up again. But the board lost its popularity in 1973 with the release of The Exorcist, because people started to think it was a gateway to hell. So then we can get into the whole media thing after that. But that's pretty much in a nutshell what it's always been a thing, apparently.
It's amazing that you said that. I know I spoke to Jesse prior to, spirit communication, their ways of dealing with the spirit world to find out who the kings are going to be, decisions, so forth, picking out and finding the lineage of certain people. They've always, the royalty always would have these people that were able to communicate. This right here, of course, The Exorcist. We're going to get to that. Actually, since we're on it, let's get to it right away, since Dina's brought it up. The Exorcist. For those that have seen this movie, some say it is one of the best horror movies of all time. It is definitely one of my favorites.
Yes.
And if you watch carefully, it's the director minimizes the interaction with the Ouija board. He wants you to know it's there and that there was something that helped inspire or infiltrate how this happened, because nothing comes from nothing. So the spirit that she was communicating with was Howdy, or Howdy Doody. And it was a spirit, that was the name, Howdy, that she was communicating, Linda Blair. And later on, it allowed it to infest her life, get involved, and possess her. So the Ouija board, this was the 70s. Like you said, this blew up, Ouija boards, with games and everything all over the world. But it was inspired, in pop culture from The Exorcist. So let's get into that, because with Ouija boards, you are able to communicate. You are able to contact a spirit, but the spirits lie. We know that. Me and you know that spirits, yes, Captain Howdy Doody. Yes, that's correct, Danielle. It was Captain Howdy. That was the spirit communicating, but spirits lie. So you don't know if it's a boy, if it's a girl. They say it's a child. They could say it's a boy, and it could be something ancient because they're opening up doorways. So let's talk about that, on how spirits use the board and lie to you to earn your trust, to then later infiltrate your life and infest you.
Well, I mean, I always say so much of it goes back to mindset. I think if you go in there feeling, has to offset your experience, because some people have had pretty interesting experiences. They've been pretty benign. Others have been this horrific. And there's a lot of controversy with it. You're looking at people who think logically and say, no, if you're all, if you're nervous, you're going to be edgy, you're going to put a target on your back. Is that what it is? Is it mindset? Is it what's going through our head? Because some people believe that you're maybe subscribing to your own subconscious, which is kind of scary, because like what's in there, if you're bringing through things like that, or maybe the people that you're with, are you drawing on their subconscious? But one thing is for certain, I can tell you that this case, I think, opened the eyes for a lot of people who were researching at the time. And it's not that there were a whole lot. You're looking at people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, Hans Holzer, and they were, I know Ed and Lorraine were believers, strong believers in this. And I can tell you at least half of the cases that I've done in my 18 years, people have said that they have had experiences with Ouija boards going back as far as their youth. And sometimes I'm dealing with people who are in their 50s.
Yep.
And like, I can't believe it was that far back. But they don't have any, they're not restricted by time or space.
Yep.
They'll wait you out.
Through many cases when working under Lorraine and Lorraine Warren, she has said it sometimes it takes up to 7 or 8 years for the beginning of that possession or that infiltration upon your life. So it could take up to 7 or 8 years. So you play with it. 7, 8 years later, something happens. It begins to happen because there is no time for them. There's no time continuum for them. So it's fascinating to me that people think it's a game. They could fool around. They could play with it. And when it's not the case at all. So I'd like to share a quick little story about the Ouija with you. And and it goes something like this. Many, many years ago, a friend of mine who was a DJ and, traveled and so forth. He had a cottage and he goes, hey, let's go up to the cottage. My sister and her friends are going to be there and we'll have a great time. You got the fire, we got swimming, we got some barbecue. And I said, well, that's great. So I went up to the cottage and it's typical, like a movie almost, when, a bunch of young people out there, and we're having a good time. We're having some, I didn't drink much. I think I had a beer only, some barbecue, and nighttime comes on, fireplace is on, a movie. And I saw they actually had a board there, a Ouija board. And I go, you guys play with the Ouija? And they said, no, we have never played with it. We got it at a used store. We just got it, but we actually never used it. I said, well, how phenomenal. Maybe we should try it out and try and communicate. There could be some.
You were the guy that started all the trouble.
There could be something that wants to communicate with us. Well, the girls said, no, George, don't do it. We don't want to do with that. We want nothing to do with it. I go, come on, really? They go, yeah, don't play with it. I said, well, I think you're making a mistake. I think we could actually summon something. But they really wanted, that's not me, by the way. They really wanted me to have nothing to do with it. So I said, that's fine. We won't do it. Yes, I know, Jesse, but I didn't do it. Okay, I did not do it.
George.
We ended up not doing it. We ended up watching a movie. We had some a couple drinks. We had some snacks, good times, by the fireplace, some popcorn. It was good. And we went off to bed. Now, the girls, you're going to laugh, but the girls, they stayed in one room, separate from us. And me and the guy stayed in a separate room. That's just the way it was. And we were kind of going to sleep, but then we heard a loud banging on the door. Like it was a knock, like really loud, quite scary actually, of this sound, this banging. Yeah, that's kind of like the cottage we stayed at. And there was some banging on the door, and it was really loud to the point that we all got up, all the guys. Now, we got nervous because we thought someone was trying to bang on the door, maybe to break in and take it for beer. I don't think they were checking to see if there were people there because, vandals, that's what they'll do. Mm-hmm. Well, the girls got up and ran and started yelling at me, George, stop it. We know you're playing games. And I was like, listen, I legitimately did not do this. And they pointed their fingers and says, yes, you wanted to play with the Ouija board. You're trying to scare us. I'm like, I didn't do it. I swear to you, I didn't do it. And all the guys that were with me, they literally said, George didn't do a single thing. He was with us. So the question is, who came to the door around 2, 3 in the morning and started banging on our door that late? Was that associated with the Ouija? I don't know.
You know what? Power of suggestion. I think it's a careful what you wish for thing. It's like I said, it goes back to mindset. How do you know that the cabin wasn't already haunted? How do you know there wasn't something on the land? I think if you open that door, we'll discuss that further as we go in. Other forms of making contact. I really do believe in the power of suggestion. I believe in mindset. I believe that if you can project energy, like psychokinesis and telekinesis, things like that, you can definitely throw out intention very easily.
I think that's, Jesse just said something. What do you mean you didn't do it? You said, let's see if something wants to communicate with us.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes. And she said that because
George.
Literally, that's what happened. Something wanted to communicate with us. Yeah. But we didn't use the board, but something there that noticed we were wanting to communicate obviously gave me a sign and wanted to communicate. We left, by the way, the cottage the very next day. We didn't stick around after that. But, Michelle, I'm fascinated with this stuff because growing up, you read about these things and then later on more things happen and you get more involved. You learn more about it. But in the beginning, you think it's fun. In the beginning, you think it's a game. That's what you really think. And it's not a game. It's very, very serious. And you can hurt yourself and get involved in things you have no idea. Then you have to call people like Michelle and others to come to your home and do a cleansing and a blessing, maybe call a priest and whatever it takes. But this is the real deal. This is a warning and a wake-up call to everybody who's out there. In fact, today, during the promotion of this show, a friend messaged me and goes, wow, we were so bored with this whole lockdown thing. We're thinking about playing with the Ouija board. And I said, stop. Do not do that. You will open up a door where you have no idea. And I truly feel about that. Whether you believe or not, you're going to do something and let something in. And there's so many cases on that. On that note, Michelle, if you don't mind sharing with us and our amazing audience a story with a Ouija board.
Well, I have many clients that I've helped through the years, and some of them have been pretty detrimental. I can tell you a story about myself.
Yes.
Okay. Which is something that I only, talked about very briefly on a show that I did recently. The history of Ouija boards with a family member of mine, there was only 10 years difference between an aunt and myself. And she was the youngest sibling, of my mother's. She used to play with boards all the time. And one night she was fortunate that she got a spirit that came through that basically said, you shouldn't do this. And she's like, no, I want to keep going. He goes, one night, because she made the mistake of saying, show yourself. And he goes, one night I will give you the scare of your life. And my grandparents attested to this because one night they heard her scream. They got up, they came into the hall and into her bedroom. And it looked like what was just a big hunk of flesh was moving down the hall. It was just like a human form, just like completely decomposing. And they watched it just walk out of the house and it disappeared into the night. And of course, she never used a board again. So that that to me was like, somebody saying to her, knock it off, So
Mm.
she was lucky that time. But
Yeah.
then there was another time,
Mm.
like where, I had an attachment
Yeah.
as a youth. And, her solution was, well, let's just get the Ouija board. And me being only like 14 going, yeah, okay. I know I can hear it now. What? Yes. And she said, let's figure out what this is. And I was just like, oh man, okay. And in using the board, it was like one of the old, it was real wood. And what came through the board, everything started moving and we just stopped touching it and it was still moving. And all of a sudden this face just burned into the board.
Wow.
I know. And I was kind of like, wow, that's what I said. So of course, I just walked away and something followed her home that night. And it went on to, it was pushing down on her in her sleep. She felt it in the car with her. And then it went away.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took me a long time to get rid of the attachment, of course, but I did it and I was able to do it. And it's what put me on the path that I'm doing today, which is helping other people do the same thing and work on their mindsets. And I've taught a lot of people how to clear themselves.
Yes. So that actually, what really inspired you or helped you get into this was that experience. Is that what you're saying there, Michelle?
It was self-preservation.
Yeah.
I mean, not so much with the board, but having an attachment. Because back then, it's not like, there's no internet. I'm kind of aging myself right now, but there was no internet. And it's not like you could just go and just call somebody up and say, hey, come and help me out with this. It was a matter of, no, I had to educate myself, go to the library. And actually, one of the books that I grabbed was The Demonologist.
Oh,
and
okay.
and I really learned a lot from it. But I really started changing my mindset because it was crazy, the things that were going on in my home and the thing I was seeing on a regular basis and that people coming to the house would witness. It's not like this thing just lay dormant. It made its presence very well known.
Wow.
And over time, I was able to push it out of my life and it's really rears its head every now and then. And I work with a lot of amazing mediums that'll say, oh, there's this being. And I'm just like, acknowledgement is empowerment. And I'm a real believer in that. And I just don't give it up to it. Like, oh, goodbye. That's it. And pop it out, and it's been years and years now since I've seen it, but I work around so many others by helping others that I have a lot of things just come in.
Wow.
Trying to push their weight around, things like that,
It's quite spooky in that aspect that things can follow you. It can open into your life. I want to make reference to a movie that came out in the early 80s. This movie is about the Ouija board. It's called Witch Board, I believe it's called. Yes, there it is. So this movie is quite the movie. It was a good 80s movie. And it does give a lot of information on the board. The guy, when he's explaining the board, is true that the board or its spirit will use you first, gain your trust, help you possibly, and then begin to infiltrate your life. Remember, these spirits and beings are not of body. They are jealous of us because we are of body. We are here on earth. We're able to enjoy things that they are not. So many of them are jealous, especially anything negative. I mean, what positive thing is going to stick around? Mostly anything that's around is negative. So they want to be a part of our life. So the movie explains a lot on that. And this was another revitalization. As The Exorcist was for the Ouija board in the 70s, this was the 80s. And this movie really took an interesting look. It even says about sometimes who makes the Ouija board, the making of the Ouija board, where it's made. Does it have a connection for a spirit on the day it's made? In this particular movie, it discusses that the board was made on the day a child passed away in a car accident. And for some reason, there was a connection between the child and that particular board. That's what they say, which originally the boy in the movie, that spirit was pushed away for something more nefarious, something more evil. I think for those that have ever watched any paranormal shows or have been involved or are paranormal investigators, if you're with us, you'll know that this to be true because sometimes on an investigation, when you're communicating, you might be communicating with somebody, but they'll say there's something evil there as well. They'll tell you there's something with them that's trying to bully them or abuse the spirit that's there to take over and hide behind them. So there is a lot of evil out there that hides behind closed doors and behind other spirits. There it is. There's a clip here of the movie here, the Ouija board, and this is the girl that gets completely just enthralled with this thing and really starts to communicate with the spirit. But if you'd like to, know a little bit about the Ouija board, and I would watch the movie. It's very interesting, and it gives a little input on it, and it's a good warning to everybody. It's a very good warning for people not to mess with the Ouija board. So I do recommend this. Did you get to see this movie at all, Michelle?
I did not. No, I did not see this movie at all.
So this gentleman here is the one that practices it. He's an occultist, and he's into it. He does seances and so forth. That is a medium and a spiritualist. So I don't want to give the whole plot away. It's very, very interesting. But I would definitely recommend, if you want to know something about some of the dangers of the Ouija board, please watch Witch Board. I promise it's quite good, actually. It's very well done. Let's talk about other boards, because the board is a new design. It's a modern design, okay? It hasn't reared much from the 70s to the 80s and the 90s. It's the same pretty much, but there's other boards with different designs. There was one particular woman, I have to say, Michelle, and I don't want to say her name on the chat. She's passed on, but she is an occultist who was communicating, and spirits gave her information on how to create her own spirit board, the original board, how it's done. So she created this board. Now, her videos are still online, okay? And she shows you the board on how it's made, the differences, and it's very different than the regular board that you see. But it's a completely different design. So you can only imagine, what is the purpose of the design? Is it numerology? Is it size, shape? What is it all about? And it's just fascinating to me, the difference is in all the boards. So this is the 1970 board, the design that came out. And then the 80s one is similar, maybe not so much like that, but that's the 80s one. So a little bit of a change, but not that much different. Let's explain to everybody, Michelle, about the planchette and the actual board, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, like you say, there are many different types of boards. There are items that are simply spirit boards, and I've seen some that are round and very elaborately decorated. Some of them have planchettes, some of them don't. The planchette is something that you just lay your fingers on and you allow it to move around the board. Some people use pendulums. Okay. So they'll just put a pendulum over it, and they'll allow the pendulum to do all of the movement for them. I personally don't play with them. I've never followed them. I've seen all kinds of them. People have given them to me. If I go into a haunted location and they're just like, just take this, get it out of here. I've got a friend who collects them. And he just puts them away. And I'm like, you know what? It's better than trying to put it in a garage sale or trying to put it in a thrift store. It just keeps them away. And I just find that, burning them, some people have success. Some people really do not have any success with it. Disposing of them is not always easy to do. But I think we have, I think the most modern Ouija board right now is the Ouija board phone app. And
really? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Stop the presses. You didn't know that?
There is a phone app for Ouija?
Yes, there is. Because I had a father come to me one time, and he had a 12-year-old daughter. He was buying her ghost equipment because she was watching all the shows, and they sought me out. And he said, well, I work a lot. I travel a lot. So she's home, with the nanny and so on. And things started happening. He goes, oh yeah, doors and open and close all the time. There's things moving around all the time. And I was just like, I think you have a problem, because she's 12 years old, first of all. And how did this start? He goes, oh, she found the Ouija board phone app.
Wow. And
it's free to download, just saying. And now, of course, you can find it on curtains, placemats, pictures, and I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You can get, it's become a decor thing as well.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at, again, if we get back into intention of communication, I think phone apps. There are so many phone apps out there that are used to do spirit communication the Ouija board is just one of them. And there are, as you can see, many different versions of it. But it's really only one way. Cell phones now are like mini computers. You can pretty much get everything and anything on them. So, you can get, like, again, audio recorders, you can get, cameras, you can get multiple communication phone apps. But if your intention is to put out an invitation to communicate, you can do that with a voice recorder. Let's face it, if you're sitting there asking questions, are you here? Can you give me a sign that you're here?
Mm-hmm.
If you're asking those questions, you are initiating communication. You're inviting this spirit being or this entity to come into your space and communicate with you. Pendulums also. The ghost box is another way of doing that. And
yes, we know about this, the ghost box.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I mean, researchers use it all the time. And what about automatic writing? That's another real big one. Automatic writing. This has been used for thousands of years. But you know what? It's a form of possession because you are allowing the spirit or entity to step into your body. You go into a trance and you write. Automatic writing. And most of the time, the medium or the vessel has no idea of the session once it's over. There's a lot of ways to initiate communication. But unfortunately now, with cell phones, which are essentially tiny little computers, you don't have to go looking for anything. It's all right there. Right there. You can get ghost box apps. You can get everything.
Crazy. I know Jessica was saying Alexia Suri. One thing she did say is about circular. It's a demonic angelic language chart. So, so now this is making sense to me. So the circular motion with the planchette on the board, it's a circular communication. Awesome. Okay. Because I was still unsure of the purpose of it, making the circle and going round and round. So this is good. This is where we want to go. So everyone understands what's happening here. I want to get really quickly to the ghost box that you were talking about, because I had the obelisk, and you know that I bring that with me.
The obelisk also, love
the obelisk as well. Yep. Okay, so for those who don't know, I'll let you tell them, what is the obelisk?
Well, the obelisk is actually a form of EMF detector, and it works with speech instead of, let's say, like for example, the K2 works with lights. Yeah. Right. But the obelisk works with just speech instead of working with lights. Now it's built to do more. But you can also get an obelisk phone app. Just saying. So essentially, when you're going in and you're looking to pick up energy and you're asking questions, then you can start a communication. It's got, I think it had like a 2,500 word vocabulary the last time I checked on the ones being built. Wow. And and they have built-in GPS too. So they can give you a false sense of information, because if it's like, oh, well, where are you from? Right here, because you're mapped. So again, I don't know if there's a newer version. I think I the latest one I have was the Avi 5.
Wow. Avi 5. I've got the original, like the 100 word vocabulary. You got the 5?
I got the first one too. Yeah, I do.
Okay. So I just want to touch on that, because me and you were into that. As paranormal investigators, you find any type of thing that can help you, an apparatus, because, Michelle, in the beginning, it was 3-4 things, like a camera, a light, EMF detector, you're off to the races. But this thing was created where it was able to hear 100 words that you or the human ears can't pick up. So you would have it with you and it'd pick up words, and I would take it with me when I'd go on investigations. And one particular investigation was an old place. I believe it was somewhere in New York City, belonged, I think, to the military. It had to do with soldiers and so forth. And I had the obelisk and I was trying to communicate and ask questions. And it kept coming back, the word rabbit. And I'm like, what? Why is it saying rabbit? And it kept saying rabbit. So I said, well, maybe it's just not working today. Well, interesting enough, Michelle, when we left the facility, as we got outside, I'll give you 2 guesses. You only need 1. What do you think was right in front of us at the door?
It was either a rabbit or a Volkswagen rabbit.
It was a real rabbit.
Right.
There was an
Interesting.
actual rabbit right at the front door. And I was
So
like,
something
what?
was telling you there's a rabbit, and like a validation, right?
Yes, it was intelligence. It was speaking to us. So there is intelligent forms of communication. Now,
Mhm.
in no way am I advocating, and Michelle, I'm sure will vouch for this as well, for you to go and start doing paranormal investigations and get ovulists. And this is that you'd stay away from this stuff, because even before I even got into it, I was training somewhat with, Patty Starr and then with
Mhm.
Lorraine before I got into it. So I wanted to learn from whoever I could learn from about how to use these mechanics and stuff. And, you have to be protected. I was saying so many times about how I try to protect myself spiritually in prayer and so forth. You really got to be careful that you don't take these things home when you're on an investigation. It's dangerous, Michelle. You know this. It's happened to you.
It's happened to me a lot, and I'll tell you something. The first time I ever used the Avi was I was at a case. I
Yep.
had a demonic attachment there, and it was causing a lot of havoc. It actually came from another location I was doing with a small
Sorry,
boy.
Michelle, for interrupting. The clip that he was just showing, sorry for interrupting. That's our fellow Canadian right there, I believe. The clip that was just showing, communicating. He also has the obelisk. I actually got it from him. That's our fellow Canadian there who's on many, many shows and a lot of stuff. But on this show
Right.
specifically. But anyways, sorry, I just wanted to make clear. I guess a lot of Canadians are into this, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
continue.
When I was there, we were waiting for a medium to arrive. And when I went to get up, it said, sit down. So I sat back down,
Okay.
and I'm like, okay. Then it kept saying, accident, accident. And it went car, it went hit. Within literally less than 5 minutes, the homeowner got a call. The medium had been sideswiped, taken right off the road by another car. It took her right off the road and just demoed her new car. She was on her way to assist
Yeah.
at this case.
Wow.
So yes, it's just like, nope, not making it. And guess what? What didn't happen?
Yeah.
Because it was crazy, crazy. So sometimes, yes, things will, I think any form of energy can communicate with you, but I'm definitely thinking that something there was letting us know that, guess what?
Yeah. And that
I
was
went.
that was the spirit. That was the spirit box, right? The obelisk.
That was the obelisk. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ghost box is entirely different. The ghost box runs on
Yes.
an AM and now FM radio frequencies because it's believed that spirits can ride the waves when they speak. And I learned that firsthand the
Mhm.
old-fashioned way because someone very, very dear to me passed away. And back in the day, we had those old answering machines with the tape,
Yes.
and it would just beep through messages. And I came home one day and I clicked on the machine because I saw I had it showed multiple messages, but it was her. And in the background, I could hear very faint music playing, and all it said was, "Hello, fellas." She was talking to the cats because she used to call them fellas. She died
Yeah.
of cancer. She was elderly,
Wow.
so she had this really, elderly, raspy voice, and it channeled through about 4 spaces, and it kept beeping. But she was riding the waves because you could hear a radio in the background, and she was just
Mhm.
riding off of that. So, hence the technology, the ghost box riding the waves.
Mhm. It's unbelievable. I just want to make reference. Boo says, I wonder if we are in danger just speaking about this. I don't want any unwanted demons. Don't worry. I think you're not participating in anything. And we'll definitely say a closing prayer for everybody so everyone will be positive in a good place. Another gentleman, which you've met, which we both know, is Chris Moon. I haven't talked to Chris in a while. Christopher has an amazing apparatus, the telephone to the dead.
Yeah, I've got one here.
You have one?
Yes, I do have a Frank's
How the
box.
heck did you get the telephone to the dead? This is
I have
get it.
I have several. Actually, I have 3 of them. And the telephone to the dead was made by Frank Sumption, and they're all very individual and unique. Chris has the very first one. I happen right now I am babysitting one from a friend of mine. Hers is number 73, and I've had the pleasure of interacting with Frank. And he was sending me all kinds of voice recordings. And Frank was also a very big believer in aliens and believed that they could come through the box also.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. So you actually have 3. Have you ever used any?
Yes.
Have you ever used any at an investigation?
Regularly, actually.
Okay.
Yes, I have. I think with that, we're getting into you're getting into a situation where I believe that if you're a seasoned medium, you stand a better chance of using certain things as opposed to somebody who is not.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I've seen seasoned mediums get into trouble too. You can't rely on these things. They are interesting, but they are still just a device and nothing more. They're just a device. A lot of it really has to do with your intention. It's the same as when you're trying to clear a location. People think it can go in there with a smudge stick and do this and this. You cannot. And you don't think it's a one-shot deal. It has to do with the power that you put behind the words that you're using. Say what you mean what you say, follow through. Use your faith. Whatever it is that gives you faith, believe it to use it. But you have to have a whole lot more intention, power behind the intention of the act of what you're doing. And that goes to the same if you are communication. It's like taking an unlicensed driver and putting them behind the wheel of a car. It is not going to end up very well.
Yeah, I agree with you. On that note, folks, we are going to take a short break with our sponsors. When we come back with more Michelle, we're going to discuss more about the Ouija boards, the different shapes, because people are asking about the shapes of the Ouija boards itself. We're going to be discussing other forms of spirit communication and its influence on pop culture. All that will take some of your questions as well. Lots more to come right here on the Reveal Report this Friday night. So stick with us, and we'll be right back after this.
It's Fringe Friday. Tonight is Mike Adams of Natural News.
Also, joining us is Michigan's very own
Kristen Megan.
and George the Iceman.
It's Fringe Friday. It's Fringe Friday.
Fringe
Fringe Friday. Tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Only on Real Deal Media.
Hey guys, today's show is sponsored by Real Deal Media Shop, where you can get your new Real Reveal Report mug and hoodie. So we got a hoodie and we got a mug supporting the Reveal Report, and that's how we pay some bills and keep the show going. We appreciate that. So if you want to check out the shop, if you'd like to send an email, you want to ask me some questions, you got a story you want to share, if you need help with anything, if there's something paranormal, ghostly, esoteric, something's going on, you'd like to ask some questions, you'd like to get some help, send me a message. Go to info@realdealmedia.com. That's info@realdealmedia.com. And later on tonight, as you saw in the commercial, I'm going to be a special guest on Dean Ryan's show. It's called Fringe Fridays, and there's going to be an all-star cast. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to do a contest starting later on tonight around 9 p.m. Eastern. So those in Canada, a lot of parts of the U.S. Eastern, go to Real Deal Media, and I will be a guest on that show today. I'm excited later on. So I'm keeping busy. Also, if you'd like to support in any way, shape, or form, and you can able to make a PayPal donation, we appreciate it. Go to paypal.me/George Iceman. That's paypal.me/George Iceman. I thank you so much for all the love, support, and being a part of the show. Guys, let's get back to it. Ouija boards. That's our topic of conversation. Let's bring back our very special guest. Michelle, how are you again?
I'm well, darling. How are you?
Good. Did you have time to get a coffee or a drink or something?
All the time.
There it is. Wonderful.
Yes.
Let's get into here something. The mysterious death of William Fuld, the gentleman, the creator of the Ouija board. Mysterious, right? All right. In early 1927, he went up to a roof of the building to supervise the replacement of a flagpole. This is one story. According to the Baltimore Sun, he was standing near the edge of the roof, grasping an iron support of the pole to steady himself. Then a workman said, when the support suddenly pulled away and he toppled over backwards, he fell and he died. That's one story. And another story is that he went to the top of the roof. He was depressed. He was sad. He was, angry, and he committed suicide. He jumped off the roof, committed suicide. That's very, very interesting for the man and the creator of this particular Ouija board, who made millions of dollars off people who it helped definitely destroy a lot of people's lives. So, it's crazy stories like that. People associated that have negative consequences in their life. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a coincidence, Michelle?
You know what? It's very interesting that you say, you made one key point that the board, destroyed so many lives, because it takes me back to Sarah Winchester, who kept communicating with the spirits because the Winchester rifles killed so many people, and she had to keep building, and the spirits kept having her build. It's almost as though there has to be some kind of an atonement.
Yes.
And I just found that comment, really interesting. I had to add to that.
Love it.
I believe it's very possible. I am a strong believer in mindset, intention. I believe we are very powerful beings. And like I say, somehow, when I help people, and I've helped people worldwide, a lot of clearings now can be done remotely through remote viewing.
Yep.
Probably do about 50 or 60 of those a week worldwide. And it's easier for somebody to think, I have a demon in the house, than it is for them to think, I'm a strong being. I have been created as a powerful being, and I'm projecting this energy because something is scaring me.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me, the mind, but it just lends to the theory that your intention is so very important. I always tell people, if you think something has come in, you have to be the one in control, raise your vibrations, positive. Negative things cannot live in a positive space. They cannot. They can't feed, which means it can't get stronger. The board has become something that when you think spirit communication, you think Ouija board. You go to any store now and you just buy one, you come home. You don't even need a board. You can take a glass and you can just put it down, ask for yes or no answers. You can put paper down. When you talk about shapes of the board, when you think about it now, like I said, it's become a home decor thing. Yep. You can buy a placemat and grab a glass. You can you can have your nails done with little Ouija boards. You can have a bedspread, a tablecloth. It's everywhere. People are making tables as giant Ouija boards.
I gotta add to this, Michelle. You're gonna
Yes.
find this very interesting. Okay, this is great. Dean George, what's your email? Got a pic of the circular demonic language chart. Amazing. Thank you. So, Michelle, Jesse's in the chat here, and she's got that. So let's go to info@realdealmedia.com. Info@realdealmedia.com. Just going to send us that so we could get that up on the site here. Now, Michelle, I want to tell you something of what you just said. It's very important what you just said about the printing of the Ouija and other things like that. Now, there's a company that does this around the world. I personally know one of the guys who works for the company. I never met the owner himself, but the guy who works for the company, I know of the company that does all this. And they're fans of, other things, and they use this. So I got a conversation. I got to meet this guy. We went for a bite to eat. We were discussing a lot of things. Now, this is a major company around the world with many of you, well, not the Christians, but those that are into this type of design of that goth, black magic, Ouija board stuff. This is what they do. They print it, they merchandise it, they brand it, they send it out, they do all that. And I sat with one of the guys and I was discussing, so what do you do? What kind of ceremonies do you mess around with? What do you play with? What are you into? What kind of magic do you study? Let's compare notes, basically, is what I was doing. I was trying to talk shop, Michelle. Let's compare notes. What are you into? And the guy looked at me and goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, are you into Enochian magic? Are you into the Lesser Keys of Solomon? Are you into hoodoo? Are you into Wicca? What exactly do you dabble with? And he goes, I don't dabble with anything. I said, well, you're putting in all this stuff. He goes, no, man, this is all nonsense. This is about making money. I went,
Mind blown.
I was blown away because I thought this guy was in it and he was occultic and he was putting it together and blah, blah, blah. He had nothing. He had no clue what I was talking about because I'm not into that stuff. We just take designs and stuff from the occultic and we go to concerts and shows. We got our website. We got everything. And they do very well for themselves. I'm never going to mention their name, but...
it's a huge movement. It is. It's become really big business.
Yep. It's absolutely scary. And spirit communication, again, we're talking about Ouija boards, but there's so much more. The pendulum, spirit writing. There's just so many other ways to communicate with spirits. And we talked about it with the obelisk, the telephone to the dead. One name, gentleman's name is Christopher
Yes.
Moon. And in fact, you've inspired me. Would you be interested in doing possibly a round table, Michelle? Me, you, Christopher Moon, maybe one more. We'll get like 4 of us in a show on a Friday to discuss the different types of communication there is, and everyone could share their experiences and what they've done, because that would be a blockbuster show.
I think so. Absolutely. I love Chris. I saw him just a few years ago. We did a conference up here in Buffalo.
Yeah. How's he doing? Is he keeping well?
He seemed to be keeping well at the time. I think he's in Texas now, I believe. So, yeah, he's doing well. Seems to be. He's online quite a bit.
Okay. Now, for those who don't know, me and Michelle and Christopher Moon, another woman who's a you could call medium. I would assume she's a medium. She was on the show. I always forget the paranormal
State. You're talking about Michelle Belanger.
Thank you very much.
She's really awesome. Yes.
Yes. So Michelle as well. We got to witness a seance in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, in a classic hotel environment. It was in the ballroom. This is a few years ago, Michelle. And I got to tell you,
2010.
2000, was it 2010?
That's a long time ago. Damn. Wow. I know.
Man, that's a long time.
It sure is.
So, I'll tell you, we'll get into it. So there was a very interesting seance where Chris was there trying to communicate. Michelle was there. You yourself was there. I was there. And they were trying to communicate with any spirits of this hotel that it was supposedly haunted. Somebody at the table, apparently Michelle was possessed. Some kind of spirit was speaking through this gentleman. Do you remember what I was saying?
You were on the floor. I remember that. You were laughing. And you're just like, what? I think we all kind of looked at each other a little bit perplexed and went,
Yeah, I was apparently. I mean, he claims that he was possessed or he was communicating something. It was mind blowing to me.
channeling. Yes.
But you saw that. Now, the reason I brought that up is some people take this too far.
Yes.
Michelle. They take it too far as if they want to be possessed. Here comes intent now. They want to be possessed. They think it's cool. They want to communicate with demons. They want to communicate with spirits. They want to have this knowledge. What is this fascination with communicating with the other side and possibly having power over anybody else?
I don't know so much. I mean, there are people out there who do it for power without a doubt, without a doubt. I think through the ages, it's been an ongoing fascination and quest for what comes next.
Yeah.
Tell us what's coming next. What is it like there? I had an uncle who feared dying. He knew he was dying. And when he passed, and he was a really good medium.
Yeah.
And I was communicating with him, and I said, "Is it everything you thought it was?" He goes, "And more." I said, "Soul energy." He goes, "So much more." He goes, "So many lights, beautiful." And I went, "Wow." It was really wild. And I think throughout time, it's been a matter of just thinking the spirits are going to guide you and give you information for the future, and communicating with loved ones, because we don't all realize that life goes on. It's just minus the body. Just picture yourself going to work every day, putting the car in the garage, going to bed. When the car stops working, you still find a way to get around. It really is like that. They really are around. You just have to learn to listen.
It's mind blowing. They definitely are around. I know there was some questions. I think one was from Find Your Own Truth. Earlier in the show was asking about the sizes of the Ouija boards and the shapes. If we would know meaning behind that. Do you have any, do you want to answer that question, Michelle?
I think at one time I could have said maybe certain ones had meanings. You have witches boards. A lot of those tend to be round and, like I said, very elaborate. But now there's so many of them out there in every shape and size. I don't necessarily know that the shape even makes a difference. It's the intention to open up dialogue and to make an invitation to communicate. You're making that invitation. It doesn't matter. Like I said, you could take a glass, throw it on the table, and just invoke it, bring it, put the intention out there, and you've got that glass moving.
It's unbelievable. Again, you know, we're sharing stories. We're talking about the Ouija board because it's fascinating here. But this is all about warning you guys, because there's so many bad things out there that you could summon. You're not supposed to. I'll have to ask Jesse this, but there was one specific occultist, and I don't know if you've heard of this gentleman, Michelle. The gentleman name was John Todd. Have you heard of John Todd?
I have.
Okay. So John Todd has this famous, I guess he did I don't know if it's a presentation. He was speaking at a church basement. And what he said was shocking to me. Now, guys, listen to me very carefully. John Todd was apparently from Scotland, his bloodline, his lineage. He was, he says he was a witch. He says he a lot of connections in government, military, music, entertainment, television, all witches, all practicing the occult. John Todd made several appearances and audio tapes within the Christian community, warning of the plan of the Illuminati before he was framed. Imprisoned, jailed, yes, he was. That's true. Several attempts were made to his life, and today no one knows for sure what became of John Todd. Correct. Now, the blockbuster that he left was that he did say that he was deep into the occult, deep into magic, sorcery, and they practiced spells, ancient spells. Now, here's what stood out. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. I can't stress this enough. A guy with that kind of reputation said he never played with the Ouija board. So just let that sink in for a moment. Now, I think this might be from Jesse, who sent this in. Jesse, by the way, says the demonic language includes shapes. Everything is about shapes, triangles, circles, pyramids, and so forth, all that. So the demonic language consists of shapes. This is something that she brought here that was sent to us, I believe. Mind-blowing. So it'll explain a little bit about the different shapes of the boards, depending, I guess, on which country it's from, which occultic bloodline would practice that. I know when you're talking about the red dragon, that is based on magic that particular bloodline follows and goes after that particular magic. Here it is. See? Very interesting how the letters are and the meaning, how that looks. Look at that, eh? What the V looks like in that letter form. Kind of upside down. You see, and it's almost as if a lot of it looks like upside down. Some of it is upside down here. And it goes back to, as above, as so below, what they're talking
As
about.
above, so below, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the letters upside down here. They're seeing it. It's very strange what's happening. But take a good look at that. And again, you have a written language. They use shapes to communicate. And most importantly, even people that practice the occult. Jesse, please answer if you're in the chat. Were you ever allowed to use the Ouija board? I don't know if you were, but I've been told by others who practice, the left-hand path, they never dabbled with that. They stayed away from it. They did other things, but they never that specifically. So if they don't deal with it and we don't deal with it, then you shouldn't deal with it and just stay away from it. Michelle, closing thoughts. What do you think?
Oh man, I truly believe in the careful what you wish for thing. I really do. Intention is everything. But if you happen to fall into a situation, then you get yourself into something and you end up with something attached to you. Believe me, they bring friends, and a lot of times they will wait you out. And there are ways to get around it. Just remember, everything is vibrations and frequencies, and as long as you stay positive, you will get yourself out of it, because you're not. They need negative energy to feed. It's why they stir up so much stuff. So positive mindset. Learn how to ground yourself. People are really fascinated with this stuff, and they want to go and learn how to meditate. And there's a right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. Learn how to ground your energy to make it so things are it's a little bit harder for them to attach to you before you make yourself vulnerable and start meditating. Believe me, if you are meant to do this, then you're just use your abilities, your own abilities, but do it right.
And I agree with you. Me personally, I would stay away from Ouija boards. I mean, this show is, talking about everyone's interest and, other forms of communication. I don't advocate it. Stay away from it is what I say. Possibly don't go near it. Don't bother with it. You want to watch a movie and you want to get that thrill. I understand. We all get that, but
sometimes it's guilty by association. It's sometimes you can be in the same room with somebody who's doing it.
Yeah.
And then you just happen to be in the room and that person's got the attachment, like, oh, look at you. Yeah. Like they can go to multiple people at one time.
Yeah. You gotta be careful, and you gotta be strong. And it's everywhere. I mean, the spirit world is everywhere, and it looks like now the government even pushes it upon you in so many ways. Like it was brought to our attention, Siri and others. Now you're telling me, shocking, this I never knew. There's an app for the Ouija board. So everybody watching, please do not download it. Do not communicate. I can tell you horror stories about me going to people's homes saying, oh, I think I have a ghost here. And it was them that was antagonizing it, trying to communicate with it, getting it to come and do things in their home. And the things I caught on tape, because they initiated it. So don't try that at home. Whatever you do, this is all very real stuff. We got people like Michelle, people like Jesse who come on the show with much experience from the top, the very top of the top. We're so blessed and lucky to have people of this caliber communicate this message to you. Stay in the light, stay in love, be positive, raise your human vibration, go outside, get some vitamin D, get some fresh air, be kind to others.
But listen to shows like this one. You and I, George, we provide platforms. I have millions of people a week who listen.
Yeah.
That's a good start to getting the message out. When you bring on topics like this, you're educating people. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're educating people. A show,
Yeah.
there's so many shows out there that give you very little.
Yes.
And it's important to have shows with substance. And this is a show. I love your show. Just saying.
Thank you. And I love having you here. And it's a pleasure. I know I can only get you once a month. I'll take it. I know you're busy. Again, coming up, French Fridays, 9:00 on The Real Deal Media. I'll be a special guest. We're going to have a lot of fun, give away some stuff. Jesse Zabolder says, great show, Michelle and George. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
And I have to say, for those watching right now, get ready for another crazy show next week, because this show, Michelle, you might even want to tune into this show. This show next week with Jesse. And Jesse's got a lot of knowledge. He also comes prepared, does all her stuff. It's amazing. The only, like you see how we rear off?
Yes.
Michelle, we're talking about, because you open up so many doors. People don't understand. We can have a show on any topic you talked about. I love it. And the same thing with Jesse. So we had a show last week, and then she brought up giants. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a sec.
Oh, that's a good thing.
So next week, right here at 7:30, it's going to be historic, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk about the Nephilim, the giants. We're also going to talk about stargates, gateways, portals. You're not going to want to miss this show. It's going to be absolutely amazing. On that note, I want to thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate all the support, love. Please like, subscribe. In closing, I'll say a prayer, if that's okay, Michelle, to everybody watching. Lord God, bless everybody watching the show. Help them today and this weekend. Be with us. Protect us from anything evil that is trying to hurt us in any way. Bring us love. Bring us light. Guide us. Protect us. Anyone watching this show is having problems eternally, physically, spiritually, mentally, financially. Touch them, Lord God Almighty, with your angels. Bring them hope, bring them light, bring them happiness. I can't stress enough how much we love you, Lord, and we need you more than ever. I pray this in your holy name. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. It's an incredible show. We will have you back again, and we will see everybody here next week, Friday, 7:30, The Reveal Report. I'm George Iceman. See you next week. God bless.
Everything possible to destroy us.